very quickly, the history of intermittent fasting goes way, way back. Well, first of all, there's been a big study on aging, and they think it's tied to the telomeres and really starvation. I think that's been proven false. Inflammatory markers, nutritional density, all those kinds of things play a much bigger part. Like I said, I won't go over this really in detail, but predicting survival and longevity, inflammatory markers, fasting insulin. If you're going to measure two things, you'd measure inflammatory markers and fasting insulin and try to optimize those if you want to live a long, healthy life. This is just sort of a picture of how ketone bodies work. We have two mechanisms for fuel, glucose and ketone bodies. Ketone bodies is when we burn fat. And most Americans are very, very, very inefficient at burning fat, ketone bodies. So part of what we talk about here is how you become efficient at that. But it's not just about shedding pounds, it's about the health benefits that are attributable to that process as well. So intermittent fasting is time-restricted feeding. Some people should, some people shouldn't. It's subject to individuality as well as it is generality, though. Fasting is not new. It's been around since the beginning of time. Plato says, I fast for greater physical and mental efficacy. So actually, digestion is very energy intensive, and so is thinking. And so they're competing. So when you're not spending so much time digesting, you can put more resources to your brain. There are 77 biblical references to fasting, and the Quran has no more than 13. Let's see, Culture of Science. There's an interesting video we played last time about a gentleman who has a website called, or a YouTube site called, What I've Learned. And he basically makes the case through this book that this lady, Abigail Carroll, wrote, that 3 meals a day is really culture more than it is physiological or biological need. So we've been coerced into thinking we need to eat 3 meals a day.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Or in my case, 5, 6, 7, or 8.
Well, you actually need it.
Okay.
You need it. You need it.
So here's the video. If you didn't get to see the video and you're interested in watching a very interesting video by a layperson who really has done some great research and creates great content on why he only eats 1 meal a day. Mm-hmm. So that's his video there. It's on the website, on the YouTube channel, What I've Learned.
But what happens if you have low blood sugar? Because I can't keep my blood sugar even enough if I don't eat my meals.
I think it'll regulate, because in that video, you'll see you have a fantastic organ called the liver, mm-hmm. which will do its best to supply you with blood sugar. So, I mean, naturally, you're not getting the whole picture of what your fasting insulin, what your C-peptide, what's the health of your pancreas, all of
mm-hmm.
those factors. Dr. Carter?
Well, yeah, I mean, if you're experiencing low blood sugar, yeah, your liver is not functioning optimally. So definitely need to look at what your values are showing, and want to be on some of the supplements that can help improve that, and also just improve the insulin resistance, because if you're experiencing low blood sugar, you're experiencing a level of insulin resistance as well, because you're having these big swings, whenever you're consuming either carbohydrates or protein, then your insulin level goes up to, push the glucose into the cells and so forth. But if it's overshooting, then, there are some issues going on with that. So, so you got to kind of hit it from both sides.
Yeah. And the other part of it is, if you get more in ketosis, you're not as dependent on the sugars. So it may not be a bad thing. I mean, it's a question of knowing you're sensitive, monitoring it well, and having someone sort of overseeing you, so you're not put into a desperate situation. What's the advantage of eating well and eating on a different schedule than we've been acclimatized to for cultural reasons. Well, the mid-Victorians lived in the 19th century, lived longer than Brits today. And they had 1/10 of degenerative diseases. So they fell off the cliff at the end of life rather than sliding down the slippery slope, which is what we're really trying to achieve. And, anybody who's read their children, grandchildren, or whatever, the Little House on the Prairie, Laura Ingalls Wilder series sees that these folks in South Dakota went a long time without any significant food. How'd they do that? They went into a fasting mode. So they're efficiently burning fat. Yes, they're robbing some nutrients and minerals from other reservoirs like your bones for minerals. So that's not a perfectly good scenario, but you don't die from it. And the video made the point that one gentleman fasted for 382 days, a water mineral fast, and did just fine. 382 days. 382 seconds is a challenge for some of us, but just saying. So anyway, the beautiful Jazz will take over because I am not an expert on the granularity of the various intermittent fasting techniques, and she much more so. So I'll turn it over to her.
Hi guys, thank you so much. So I'm really excited to be here because I have personally had a struggle with insulin resistance, and I still am a runner, but I was very fit, and by looking at me, you couldn't really tell that I was severely insulin resistant, but I was. I mean, I couldn't go more than 2 hours without eating something, and if I didn't have my oatmeal within 30 minutes of waking up, I would get clammy and cold and dizzy and just not well. So
am I allowed to tell a quick story?
Please do.
When we go hiking, we lived up in New Hampshire, we go hiking in the White Mountains.
You were a mule.
And I literally had a 40-pound pack, most of it chicken.
Yeah, we were the only people hiking with bags of chicken. It was real. It was real. I couldn't function, if I had gone more than 2 hours without eating. So it took me years to kind of swing that pendulum. I did a ketogenic diet for about 4 or 5 months, strict keto. And then I started layering in healthy carbs because I personally am of the mind of, when you go on any kind of diet, you are creating some kind of a deficiency because you're not giving yourself the opportunity to have this broad range of, foods and nutrients whenever you're excluding certain things. So, but I can testify that the ketogenic diet for a shorter period of time, a few months, will definitely swing that pendulum back if you are in either type 2 diabetes or, just severely insulin resistant.
Or trouble losing weight.
Yeah, any of those things, it'll definitely train your body to start dipping into that stored fat for energy. And it's definitely a cleaner type of fuel, so you will feel different. It's not that like spike in energy that you get from caffeine or sugar, but it's just like this very, it's a steady, slow and steady kind of energy that you're able to really focus. It's just this clarity of thinking and mind, and it's really quite wonderful. So the longest fast I have personally done, where I went from not being able to go 2 hours without eating to the longest fast I've done is a 5-day water fast. And so that took me a long time to, Dr. Jockers has done a great job at really developing a whole guide that we have. If anybody is interested in it, I'm happy to just let us know and I can send it to you. And we're going to cover some of those today. But really, it really kind of builds that, he calls it the fasting muscle. You get from, we're really not created to binge the way we do and to be as sedentary as we are. And so we are where we are, right? So it's a great exercise for the body to kind of get used to dipping into that fat storage that we're all kind of accumulating, and use it for energy. So if you have the food, it's good. But if you don't have the food, you're not experiencing those, those sugar lows or those crashes. Okay, so that's enough of the intro. So the problem here, I think, is this where you left off, honey? Yep. Okay. So we're designed, and I think I just said this, but we're designed to adapt to different challenging environments. As we evolved, we didn't always have the ability to sit down and just have food in the refrigerator. So our bodies are really created to meet those demands of, feast and famine. But nowadays we're sedentary and we have this access to food that we've never had before. And so we can basically just sit down and constantly eat. And like Dr. Lewis just mentioned, it's like, oh, it's time to eat. It's lunchtime, right? I have a break. I have to go and put something in my body. And so we've gotten used to that cycle. But breaking out of that cycle is actually helpful to the body because there's so much energy and resources that goes into breaking down food and digesting. And when you think about it, in my case, when I was eating every 2 to 3 hours, my body was literally living to digest. It was constantly just spending that energy on breaking down food and trying to digest. And so I actually have one knee that was bone on bone in my 20s. In my 20s, I was told that I was going to need a knee replacement. And I still ran after that, but it was always bothering me. I was taking a ton of ibuprofen on a daily basis. And I have to say, after my 5-day fast, it didn't happen during my shorter fast, but after my 5-day fast, I haven't had that pain in that knee. And that was a couple of years ago. Mm-hmm. So for 2 years, I have not had, even though supposedly I was bone on bone, I have not had pain in that knee. And that's because having those 5 days where the body had all of this energy and all of this staff to put to work on repairing that knee, we're constantly trying to repair. So when we're able to do these intermittent fasts, we're able to give the body a break. And not only does the digestive tract get a break, but the body's able to repair other things. So, okay, we can move on. So that makes
I think this guy's working out pretty hard.
Yeah, he's working it. So burning fat for fuel, nutritional ketosis. Nutritional ketosis is basically just a metabolic state where your body switches from using sugar or glucose as a primary source of fuel to burning fatty acids for fuel. And that's what we want to train the body to do. That's what happens when you go on a ketogenic diet. When you go on a ketogenic diet, you start burning fat for fuel, which, you're using ketones for energy. So ketones are produced by the liver, both dietary fat and our own stored body fat. Whenever glucose levels drop to a certain point, the body will dip into this for survival. So ketones create 14 times more cellular energy than glucose. And so that's why when you finally get into a fat adapted state, that energy, you will be able to tell the difference between just like a jittery energy that you get from caffeine or from sugar and the more steady and clear sustainable energy that you get from ketones. Metabolism of ketones produced close to 50% less metabolic waste and oxidative stress than glucose. And so what that means is, even though you have that surge of energy that you're getting from the ketones, you are saving your body all of that oxidative stress that comes from burning glucose. So if you have any kind of chronic disease, which is stemming from, underlying inflammation, you're really quelling that inflammation by going on a low carb or ketogenic diet because you're burning a cleaner fuel. Okay, so do you have to be on a ketogenic diet in order to benefit from intermittent fasting? And the answer is no. You will still benefit from intermittent fasting without being on a ketogenic diet. However, when your body is fat adapted, meaning it's quick to switch into that fat burning state, fasting will be a lot easier, as your body will readily be switching into that fat burning for energy in the absence of carbs and glucose and food in general.
I think you have a testimony on that too. When you first went from being sort of diabetic or insulin resistant into a state of ketosis, it was actually a challenging process. But then when you went back, I wouldn't say recidivism, but you weren't purely in that phase. When you went back into it, it went very easily.
Very easily. And still, I'm not actively, I haven't been on a ketogenic diet in a long time, but we can still go for an 11-mile hike. And I will on no food, and Tom doesn't have Tom doesn't have to go hauling food for me. Because I can do it because my body is trained. It's strengthened that muscle and it knows what to do in the absence of carbs or food in general. So the transition to ketosis, the one thing I would say, a lot of people that hear that I've been on a 5-day water fast, it's like, that's mind blowing. Like, I can't do that, right? Every person is unique. So I think the most important thing, and I think it was Linda that mentioned, you have low blood sugar, right? So if you were to try to do some intermittent fasting, what I would recommend to you and to anyone is listen to your body, because each one of us is unique. So the first thing we generally do is we ask for a food journal before you're heading into, down this path, is let's see what you're eating. And then we can determine how glucose dependent you really are, because there's so much deception out there when you think you're eating right. And then, you don't realize there's so many hidden sugars and there's so many inflammatory oils and all that stuff. So we kind of look at your food journal and say, okay, well, here's how we suggest you start. And there's so many different ways to, start that journey into intermittent fasting. But each person is unique. And I will say it took me several tries to get to a 3-day fast. And then from the 3-day fast to the 5-day fast was actually a lot easier than you might imagine. But the 3-day fast was really hard. It took me 3 tries. And my advice to our clients all the time is, no matter where you are, don't set a goal like, this is what I'm going to do. Set a goal, very loose goal, but always, always listen to your body. Always, because we're all different. And so we need to be conscious of that. So that's why you say work closely with a coach. No, you're good. So the top 12 benefits of a fasting lifestyle: it stimulates fat burning, which we talked about, improves energy levels, reduces inflammation because you're burning the fat, and the fat has it gives off less oxidative stress. So your body's able to take a break in that way. It reduces inflammation, takes stress off of the digestive system, really allowing that energy to go elsewhere for repair and recovery. It takes a stress. Okay, so it stimulates cellular autophagy, which is where your cells are really trying to get rid of, it's that cleansing process that you go through when you're in movement. Improves genetic repair mechanisms. It stimulates development of stem cells, improves insulin sensitivity, because you're no longer heavily depending on that glucose. So you're steering away from that, reduces chronic disease risk for obvious reasons. It's lowering that whole body inflammation that leads to chronic disease, improving the relationship with food. This is really, really huge, especially from a coaching perspective, because we become so psychologically enamored with food, and we're so dependent, oh my gosh, it's lunchtime, and we basically live our lives around our meals, around food. And so when you start exercising that intermittent fasting muscle, you really start becoming less dependent on food. So maybe you will go out for lunch and not have lunch, or you will work through lunchtime, or instead of actually eating, you'll go out for a walk and you'll feel great and you won't need that. So you regain that power, you take back control over that part of your life. And so that's what I find with clients, is that food addiction is a huge issue. And it's because there's a lot of emotional involvement with food. And going through this exercise of intermittent fasting, it kind of gives you the okay, like it's okay for me to have wonderful memories and have these loving relationships and not build them around food. That's unhealthy for me. So that's huge. So enhanced mental health, again, because it helps your relationship with food, but also because when you're burning fat for fuel, you will find that your brain just works better. Your memory is better. You're more alert. You feel good. So those are benefits. Spiritual growth and fine-tuned intuition. Again, listening to your body. I personally am a Christian, but I don't care what the higher power is. The bottom line is this body that we have is sacred. And when we start paying attention to it and kind of listening to what it has to say to us, we do experience spiritual growth, and we're more in tune with what our bodies are trying to express to us. So this is one, and I don't know how we're doing on time, because I know we're pretty close, but we're kind of breaking into.
Yeah, you don't have to finish the whole thing.
Okay, yeah, we're just gonna get started. So this is how we would start, and this is all based on the Dr. Jocker's guide. Again, I'm happy to send that to anyone that's interested. The number one step would be a simple fast, which is basically just 12 hours of fasting. So if you have dinner at 6 or 7, then you don't eat again. You can have water, but no solid food until the following day at 6 or 7. This is a good place for most people to start. A lot of people, I was one of those people, I ate at like 7 or 8. And if I got up at 3 or 4, which is the time I was getting up at the time, and I was running 5 miles in the morning. So I got up really early and I had to have breakfast. So even doing a 10-hour fast for me at the time would have been a huge struggle. And so again, everyone is different, but this is a good place to start. And then the next one would be the brunch fast. And that's basically a 14-hour fast. So you would have dinner, and then it's called a brunch fast because you will have a later breakfast. So if your last meal is at 7, you probably won't eat again until 9 a.m.
Can I make a comment here?
For sure.
Because another thing about the culture is we have a certain set of foods we eat for breakfast. And I prefer to have lunch or dinner at breakfast time.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that. So a salad doesn't sound like a typical breakfast, but at brunch, you could have a salad. And
right.
So like a brunch fast at 9 a.m., you can say, breakfast is long gone.
Right.
And you can have yourself a salad at that time.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, who says that we need to have, cereal or oatmeal for breakfast, pancakes for breakfast? Okay. So 3 would be the cycle fast. So 3 times each week, you want to fast for 14 to 16 hours by skipping either breakfast or dinner. So now we're getting into the longer fast, 14 to 16 hours. That can be kind of a big deal. If you've had dinner at 7, that means that you'll probably be eating again at noontime. And some people find that super challenging, and that's good. You want to continue to challenge yourself. It's just like lifting weights. If you want to struggle those last 3 reps, otherwise it's not really building the muscle. So you want to continue to challenge yourself, but you don't want to set yourself up for failure at the same time.
The reason why there's a great deal of variability is depending on how athletically trained you are, and it can be just you walk or garden or you're an endurance athlete, your muscle and your liver store glycogen. Okay. And the more you train, the more fit you are, the more you store. So an athlete may do a cycle fast and never burn all the glycogen stored up. So in essence, they did not fast. Because the goal of fasting is to deplete your glycogen, which is the fuel in your refrigerator. So you have to start burning the fuel that's in your freezer. That's your fat. So that's why there's variability. So someone doing a 14 to 16 hour fast may feel nothing, and in fact, they did feel nothing. Whereas someone else might really feel that you go through that transition of burning the ketone bodies, which is kind of obvious at the beginning because you get a little hypoglycemic, you feel a little maybe sweaty, clammy, or hungry, or any number of other symptoms. Right.
And I think it's really important for people to feel comfortable with their progress. So I always say, if listen to your body, if you're feeling uncomfortable, then go ahead and eat. If you set a goal for, 16 hours and you only made 14 or 15 or 13 even, and you're like, what, I'm jittery and I feel like I should eat, it's okay. Go ahead and eat and then try it again in a couple of days.
Yeah.
So everyone is going to be different. Some people will just be able to bang it out, and then some people may have to build up to it. There's no wrong way to get there as long any kind of progress is progress.
And we tell our participants to plan, because if you're not planning and all of a sudden you get hungry and you reach for the Snickers bar, rather than say some walnuts or pecans, something like that, that's really healthy and will help you with that whole process, then, you set yourself up for failure too.
Right. Yeah. So I think we should stop here. But the reason why they call it the cycle fast is because you're really only doing this one. And this is how you're starting out: Mondays, Wednesdays, and Fridays. And the reason why you're not doing back to back 14 to 16 hours is because the body is incredible at adapting. So if you do something every single day, in no time, your body is going to say, okay, this is our new norm. And then you're not getting that effect. You want to keep the body on its toes. It's the difference between doing the same exercise every day for a long time than, what you've heard about cross training. You're switching it up. You want to keep the body on its toes. So you don't want to be doing a 14 to 16 hour fast every single day, because then it becomes your new norm and it's no longer a fast. It's just your norm. So you want to make sure that you're skipping that day. Some days every other day you have the breakfast, and then every other day you're doing that extended fast. So
you can go a couple more.
You sure? Okay. Because
I went longer on the other one, so I'm trying to stay.
Okay. So it's 8:33. I just want to make sure that I'm not breaking any rules. Okay. So number 4, the strong fast. So consume all foods between 6 to 8 hours, an eating window every day. So you would be basically eating 2 meals per day and fast through either breakfast or dinner. This is normally what I do. I skip breakfast. A lot of people are big breakfast folks. There's nothing wrong with that. Have your breakfast. If you're more comfortable skipping dinner, then skip dinner. So there's no right or wrong way to do this. Whatever works best for you is fine, as long as you are consuming all of your calories between a 6 and 8 hour window. So for example, you might be fasting in the morning and eat between 12 and 7 p.m. each day, or 8 a.m. to 3 p.m. if you decide to skip dinner. So the next one would be warrior fast. So ancient warriors would often march all day and then would feast at night. So that's why they call this the warrior fast. So you're consuming all of your food within a 3 to 4 hour eating window each day. So for example, you may your last meal you may be eating all of your calories between 2 and 6 or 3 to 7 in the evening.
2 meals in 4 hours. That's a pretty good deal.
Yeah. Now, I just want to pop in a little bit of a commercial break here to say, whenever you are engaging in intermittent fasting and the closer your food window becomes, the more important it is for you to really make sure that those meals count. So you want to make sure that those meals are nutrient dense, they're well balanced. You've got, you're low carb, you're avoiding processed foods at all costs. You're not consuming tons of sugar, because whenever you are on an intermittent fasting, journey, you're really training your body to use a longer lasting fuel. So when you're not eating, you want it to quickly recognize your fat and say, okay, I'm going to use this because we're used to using this, right? This is fuel. We like this. This is not a problem. If you start consuming, if, for example, you're on a warrior fast and within a 3 to 4 hour period, you're consuming a ton of carbs and sugars or whatever, you're going to throw your system for a loop, and it's going to say, well, okay, I have all these quick burning fuels, right? And then when you go into your fast again, it's going to suffer. It's going to say, well, wait, we don't know what to do. Where's the glucose? We're looking for the glucose. And you're going to feel all of those, the headache and the clamminess and all that stuff. So even when you're eating, you want to continue to train your body. Okay, here's some fat that you can use so that when you take the food away, it's able to continue to dip into the fat that you've already stored, if that makes sense. Okay, so number 6 is a 1-day food fast. So this is a 24-hour fast. Oftentimes people will do this once a week. I know a lot of people that do one 24-hour fast each week and they don't intermittent fast during the week, and that's fine. Whatever works for you. So basically you're just consuming water, black coffee, or herbal tea with nothing added to it. Oftentimes they do it once, basically you eat dinner and then you don't eat again until dinner the next day. So that's 24-hour, 1-day
People
fast.
are doing this have adapted a little bit to ketosis.
Oh, for sure.
And they're doing this just to maintain it.
Absolutely. Yeah. So now we're getting into the advanced extended fast. Is this a place where you want to stop or you want to keep going? Okay. So the 12 strategies to prepare for an extended fast. And an extended fast is basically anything over 24 hours. You want to create a low stress schedule. What you want is to make sure that you have some kind of a structure, what to expect during that time. You don't want to be throwing yourself in situations where, something unexpected might arise. Do your best to avoid negative people. In my case, my mother, we wouldn't do that.
No, we wouldn't.
So get plenty of filtered water. Have some good salts available. Oftentimes people that are fasting, I know that when I did my 5-day fast, I was putting a little bit of a good quality salt and potassium into my water. And I was drinking a lot of that, making sure that I was hydrated. That makes the difference between you getting headaches or getting dizzy and not, because when you're fasting, you end up kind of flushing out.
Don't take potassium without medical advice, but potassium is a very important mineral. It's as important as sodium. And so here's one that you can add to your water that doesn't really change the flavor.
Yeah, it's really just, it depends on how much water you have, but I would say about a half a teaspoon of each per gallon.
Yeah.
Would that be right? Or half a gallon?
Per gallon.
Per gallon, yeah. That's about right. Okay, and then schedule a spa day. Basically, just take it easy. Avoid the kitchen if possible, because, temptations are real. Why would you put yourself in the kitchen if you're doing an extended fast? Drink water strategically. And what that means is you want to stay ahead of your thirst. While you're on an extended fast, you want to just keep drinking that water, whether you feel thirsty or not, because your body's going to need it. And you're trying to flush out a lot of the toxins that are, your body's working hard at cleaning, repairing, and there's a lot of stuff that's wanting to leave your body. And when you think of the toilet without water in the tank, that's your body when you're not hydrating. So you want to make sure that you're keeping that water flowing so you can keep everything clean and flush it all out. Getting grounded daily, getting enough sunshine, just that basic stuff that your body needs to feel good, moving your body, getting some movement. While you're doing extended fast, you want to shy away from, just strenuous exercise. You want to go for crazy runs or do anything, but definitely want to move. So going for walks is totally fine. Again, listen to your body, and give yourself permission to rest. Again, this is a time where you're really going to be in tune with your body. What am I feeling? Am I feeling tired? Do I want to rest? Do I feel like moving? Do whatever your body is asking you to do. I know that when I did my extended fast, day 1, I was obviously hungry. Day 2, I felt great. Day 3, I felt great, but there were times when I wanted to rest and there were times when I wanted to move. And then day 4 and 5, I definitely spent more time. I wouldn't say just vegging out, but there were times where I just wanted to sit down and do computer work, and just kind of like just listen to what those cues are that you're getting.
Good. I think we'll
want to wrap it up there.
Anybody
Okay.
have any questions at this point? I think we covered the major techniques you'd use to start a fasting program. So let's go and see if anybody has any questions.
I was curious. Has anyone tried Walter Longo's fasting mimicking diet?
I haven't.
I don't know what it is.
Oh, it's basically a fasting type scenario in a box. So these are prepared, snacks and meals and so forth. I would prefer people to really do it with real food, so it's still it's a processed food that they put together, and it's, it's backed up all of this research and so forth. But at the end of the day, you really want to just do this with your own food. It's kind of like the Weight Watchers or Jenny Craig type thing, where you have these structured things that are already prepared for you and guidelines. But yeah, it's just as easy to do it without that.
Fair enough. Wasn't aware of it. Any other questions? Anybody have done intermittent fasting already? Linda, I take it you haven't. Harry, you and Karen have, yeah? So.
I do every night. I do 12 to 14 hours between dinner and breakfast. That's pretty standard.
Yep.
Mm-hmm.
So you're very insulin sensitive.
Mm-hmm.
The key thing is you can be very insulin sensitive, but are you keto adapted as well? And you can do that testing with the keto strips you can get at Walgreens or CVS, just to see if you do have ketone bodies.
Okay.
And that's I always talk about insulin, and Dr. Carter always talks about insulin, but actually having ketone bodies is the yin and yang. And so you don't want to just be insulin sensitive. You want to have ketone body efficiency, ketone body burning efficiency. So that's the other half of the longevity and detoxification story.
And with the urine is only accurate for the first couple of months, maybe 3 months, and then it falls off in terms of accuracy. So you really want to do the blood ketone levels and be somewhere between 0.5 and 5. And there are a couple of breath analyzers out there. They're plus or minus in terms of accuracy. There's one I think that's coming out that is purported to be a lot more accurate. But yeah, the most accurate way would be a keto stick, with a finger stick.
Got it. Okay, very useful, Dr. Cordia. Any other questions? All righty, well, have a great Tuesday evening, and we'll see you either next Monday or next Tuesday, hopefully.
Yeah, thanks, Jazz.
Thank you, guys. It was a pleasure.
Topic yet to be determined for next week, but we always have something up our sleeves. Take good care.
All right, guys.
Bye.